If you've been paying any attention to what the tech companies have been putting out lately, then you've probably heard a lot about the Metaverse. The idea is basically that you'll put on a pair of goggles like this, and with a few clicks you can be in a complete virtual world, where you can live a complete virtual life and do everything online that you would do in the real world. But you do it as an idealized version of yourself in an idealized world. Now, who decides what's ideal? That's a real can of worms that's been opened. Mark Zuckerberg famously wants to rule the metaverse from his Meta corporation, and his idea of what an ideal human looks like is kinda bland, mostly sexless, not all that imaginative. It's like reality cleaned up to be the most marketable corporate reality possible. It's not just reality for middle America, because I'm pretty sure that middle America still takes their pants off from time to time. Heck, it's not even Disney, because Princess Jasmine at least still exists below the waist. Which is why Zuckerberg is having a hard time selling his vision of the metaverse, because smaller versions exist now that allow you to be anything you want to be, without any rules, really. Even if visiting some platforms makes you think that there's an unwritten rule that everybody has to be a cute anime girl with brightly colored hair. A lot of who you can be depends on the end goal of the metaverse you inhabit. Specifically, are you there to be the version of you that will offend the least possible amount of people while spending the maximum amount of money? Or are you there to be the you that you are deep inside of yourself when all physical restrictions have been lifted? And that's the first half of why so much metaverse fiction that exists is so dystopic and disturbing. Because the idea that a corporation can decide who you are instead of letting you be who you want to be is the very first step down a very disturbing road. And the second half goes even deeper. Because if somebody is creating the world in which you exist, they can also determine what you can do there. So suddenly, a world of infinite possibilities can start to feel so very, very small. But the more dystopian images we see, the more it feels like the bleak, corporate-friendly metaverse is just an inevitability. And if it's inevitable, then you might as well lean into the commercialized safeness of it all and reduce your questions from, can I be anyone I want to be without limits, to, can I buy a virtual DeLorean like the one Marty McFly drives in Back to the Future? So when a movie like Belle comes along with a truly utopian vision of something so often seen as a dystopian inevitability, it can be more than a breath of fresh air. It can feel like being given permission to dream once again. Writer-director Mamoru Hosoda has an interesting track record when it comes to stories about the digital world. In 2000, right at the point where the internet shifted from being the exclusive domain of the computer-savvy to being a place where everybody could find themselves, the frequent director for the Digimon franchise would direct Digimon Adventure Our War Game, in which the heroes of Digimon must face off against an intelligent virus called Diaboromon that threatens the whole world's communications infrastructure. Hosoda then moved from Digimon to working on One Piece, a swashbuckling high-seas fantasy comedy, and then into the highly stylized Samurai Champloo, not returning to an internet-based story until 2009's Summer Wars. In that story, a high school-aged boy has to balance his real life with his online life in a digital world called Oz, where he faces off against a rogue AI known as Love Machine. Hosoda then dove once more into fantasy stories of werewolves and time travel, before emerging again in 2021 with his latest foray into the internet, Belle.
Welcome to the world of you.
Somewhere detected by the copyright algorithm. Hosoda, who was born in 1967 in Kamiisho, Nakashinagawa-gun, Toyama, Japan, to a father who was a railroad conductor, began his academic career in special needs classes due to a significant stutter. He recalls that, as a child, his speech impediment caused difficulty in communicating with other children, and drawing became his means of expressing himself to the rest of the world. After seeing the film version of Captain Harlock creator Matsumoto Leiji's Galaxy Express 3-9 and Lupin III: The Castle of Cagliostro in the theaters as a child, Hosoda was enchanted with animation. It felt like a world in which anything was possible, and he wrote in his diary that he wanted to grow up to be an animation director. This would lead to him finding an animation program in middle school where he would begin experimenting with paper cutout animation, and after entering one of his amateur shorts in a film contest for Kadokawa, he would be named one of the 3 finalists, but he would have to abandon the competition when the finals in Tokyo conflicted with his midterm exams. Hosoda would enter the Kanazawa College of Art, where he drifted away from animation as he majored in oil painting. But upon graduation, he returned to his early career plans as he applied to be a trainee for Studio Ghibli. He was shortlisted, but when he wasn't hired, he received a personal letter from famed director Hayao Miyazaki, who told him that he hadn't been selected for the job because Miyazaki feared doing so would diminish Hosoda's talent, telling him, "You are better suited to making films the way you want to." Hosoda would work instead for Toei as an animator, eventually making his directorial debut on their Gegege no Kitaro. In 2000, Studio Ghibli would lure him away from Toei and sign him to direct Howl's Moving Castle. Hosoda storyboarded the first 3 acts of Howl, but his version was ultimately cancelled before it entered primary animation, and Hosoda would leave Ghibli. The exact circumstances of the cancellation are still unknown, although some studio insiders have cited that Hosoda's style of direction learned at Toei conflicted with Ghibli's own house style, and still others have said that Hosoda could never adjust to the fact that his version of Howl was in production at the same time that Ghibli was working on Spirited Away, which left him without the staff or resources he needed to move as fast as he wanted. Hosoda would briefly return to Toei, working on a movie for the One Piece franchise, before moving on to work as a freelance animation director.
Then does that mean... Are you trying to tell me that you have a crush on me? No, wait! I was only kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. Wait, what? Oh.
The genesis of Belle began with Hosoda's own love of the story of Beauty and the Beast. According to Hosoda, he was thinking about the story one day and began pondering the way that the story would look if it reflected the world of the late 2010s and early 2020s. It is, Hosoda said, a very different world, not only from the world of 18th century France in which Beauty and the Beast was originally published, but also from the world of the early 1990s America, where Disney's take on the story was produced. So, Hosoda thought, how would Beauty and the Beast play out with modern-day values and modern-day young people?
Who is that?
He showed up a few months ago in the martial arts arena.
No, he holds the record for the most consecutive wins.
But he fights dirty.
What do you mean by that?
That led him to thinking of his own daughter, and wondering how her life was going to be different from his as she grew up in a world where the internet already existed even before she was born. From these ideas came the story that Hosoda would call Ryo to Sobokasu no Hime, or The Dragon and the Freckled Princess, or as it has been titled in the English-speaking world, Belle. Hosoda prefers working for film to working for television, and has said that his stories of choice are those that reflect the realities of contemporary life. His 3 stories about online worlds have all been examinations of how the digital world interfaces with the real world and the influence that each can have on the other. Wow, our wig budget has really exploded this season. When asked by the Animate Times why he had made 3 stories about the internet, each one around 10 years later than the previous, Hosoda would say, "I feel like the internet changes a great deal every 10 years. I thought if I made a new film set in the internet, it would be an entertaining film that would reflect the present of the internet." Talking to Comic Natalie, he would also say that he has always found the internet fascinating, in part because he felt like it had the potential to allow younger generations to change the world in new and exciting ways. And that's why he winds up being attracted to telling stories about children and teenagers set in that environment. Perhaps it's that confidence in young people that when they are able to integrate the digital world with the real world, they'll be capable of changing the world in fantastic ways that gives Belle a true utopian edge on the way that it depicts the idea of a metaverse.
Join the kayak club! Hey, buddy, you interested in kayaking? Whoa! Hey, how about any of you?
Impressive. Starting the kayak club all on his own like that?
Except he's the only member.
Wonder why.
Kayak? Hey, you want to join kayak?
The world of You, Belle's Metaverse, is depicted without the typical political or commercial complications of more dystopian metaverses. It's a commercially owned space, but it's free from most considerations of such spaces in the real world. Your avatar is created automatically to be who you are really, which means that some people are just an idealized version of their daily selves, some people are magical, pink-haired princesses, and other people are golden retrievers or other variations of good puppers, because at heart, we're very good boys who just want a pat on the head. And once you have your digital self, you can live your digital life. And what do you do in your digital life? Well, whatever you want to, it seems. You allows people to set up their lives the way they see best. Some people become virtual pop stars. Some people just live regular lives, and some people, in a world of infinite freedom, decide that they're going to be cops because, yeah, some people are just born cops, I guess. But by crafting such an open, uncontrolled version of the metaverse, Belle in many ways points out what's wrong with the way modern companies are approaching the idea. The world of Belle is a world of open expression. One where the original idea of the internet, that you exist in an attention-based economy where your personal ability to capture attention translates directly into success without corporate algorithms, microtransactions, and gatekeeping getting in the way, is basically the law of the land. So you can create what you want, and if you get an audience, that's great. If you don't, you still get to create what you want. So that's still kind of great. But by stripping the idea of the metaverse down to its bare essentials, Belle also shows us what it is that people actually want from such a thing. Not to replace our lives, but to enhance them. To improve communication so that at some point, we can use the digital world to make the real world a better, more humane place. We can allow people to show their true selves online, and in that way, get to know them even better when we see them in the real world. No, I've always considered myself much more of a Fluttershy. Why? Why did you think I was a Rainbow Dash? Hosoda's previous internet-based film, Summer Wars, required somewhere around 500 storyboards. According to some sources, Hosoda reportedly drew each of those storyboards by hand while sitting at a corner booth in his favorite restaurant, Denny's. So it's fascinating to note that in Belle, this attention-based economy allows people to become their best possible selves by granting them the opportunity for popularity while still allowing them complete anonymity. It feels like Hosoda's absolutely perfect world. And to be honest, as a bit of an introvert myself, it's kind of attractive to me. Thanks for checking out the video. As of this filming, Belle is available on DVD and Blu-ray as well as streaming on HBO Max, but it's also dropping on 4K UHD Blu-ray on August 30th, 2022. As always, related links are in the description below. And while you're here, if a metaverse based your avatar on what you are inside, what would you be? I think I'm pretty sure what mine would be. And if you've watched this far, the secret Cool Kids Club code word is jumpin' gigawatts. Work it into your comment so we can recognize each other. Until next time, watch like it means something.